Hello everyone, here's your weather and hazard briefing for Tuesday, January 4th. Round one of this multi-day event has been moving through overnight. We've seen quite a bit of wind and snow with this band moving through. It will continue to wind down this morning. The next round comes tonight into Wednesday, then round 3 tomorrow night into Thursday. More into the day on Thursday. Round 4 takes a while. This is actually, instead of moisture coming over the top of the ridge, we actually have a wave moving through. It's going to take a little bit more time to get through, but by the time we get to the first part of next week, we should see this end. We'll see high pressure building in. Meanwhile, as that ridge shifts north, that's going to bring some warmer temperatures to the lower elevations. That means a mix of rain and snow. And we still are pushing the idea that even if there's no snow falling and we get some of these stronger winds, especially today and tomorrow, blowing and drifting snow will be an issue where it's colder. Basically, the snow doesn't melt or doesn't crust over. It's free to blow about across the ground, or the snow that is falling with some of these bands coming through. Now on the satellite, you can see the cloud cover with the band moving through this morning. This stream of higher clouds from northwest to southeast, that's the ridge, and this is continuing to pump north and east over us through the end of the week before a storm offshore swings on through Idaho. And again, that's going to happen Friday into Saturday. Looking at our weather risk outlook, we do have quite a bit of impact from snow and wind across the area today. So far, we have not seen any widespread major impacts. We have seen some impacts on occasion that are a little bit more, just because some of these bands, and out ahead of these bands, we've had wind gusts over 50 miles an hour, and in some cases over 60, especially where the terrain has helped increase the wind speed. Now, going into tomorrow, that risk continues, but you notice we're starting to throw rain and snow into some of the lower elevations, and that's going to mitigate, especially outside of any heavier bands of precipitation, the blowing and drifting snow risk. And that trend continues Friday into Saturday, and we start to pare back areas that we see the higher impacts by Friday and Saturday. Most of the higher impacts will be across the eastern highlands and in the Sawtooth. So other areas, a mix of rain, snow, and wind, and depending on the day, depending on the time of day, varying degrees of impact across the area. So hopefully this warmer weather will mitigate some of that blowing and drifting snow. Let's just hope it's not too much melting at once, as we'll start to see some pretty warm temperatures, especially going into tomorrow through Friday. Taking a look at how the weather is going to progress today, we already have the main band across the south this morning, little secondary area developing to the north, and we'll start to see this band kind of set up, not moving too much, but also the intensity winding down a bit. There'll be some occasional snow. Don't be surprised if outside of that during the day, especially over the central mountains, we see a few pockets of snow or snow showers developing. But the wind will be dying down as we go through the day. Now, as you'll notice, we go into this evening, we're already seeing the initial push of the next round moving into the Magic Valley and the central mountains, and that only will increase overnight. You'll notice with that strong northwest flow, you see the shadow effect, the downslope effect across a good chunk of the Arco Desert, portions of the central mountains. But you can see elsewhere we see some pretty good precipitation trying to develop. The strong south winds may again mitigate falling precipitation, or actually may be warm enough that it's not snow, or at least it's a very wet snow melting as it moves through tomorrow morning, basically from around Burley up through the Blackfoot area. Then we go through the day tomorrow. You'll see the main area of snow setting up over western and southern areas. This little second band here, this is a convergence band that's going to develop and move south during the day. And as it does, it's going to skirt down basically right along the Snake Plain, along the benches through Idaho Falls, and eventually it gets to right about Blackfoot or Pocatello, and likely seeing a little light snow extending out towards Craters of the Moon by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon. Then we see that next round of precipitation moving in after that. So moving on with the forecast, here are the snow amounts today. A lot of areas not seeing a whole lot of snow in the lower elevations, a couple of inches in the high country, but again, more of an issue with the blowing and drifting snow, especially where we can get some of this dry snow to continue to fall. And these wind gusts this morning, the highest, they'll be around 30 to 40. Some of the peaks in the Central Mountains and the South Hills and Albion Mountains will be closer to 40 to 50 miles an hour. And we still cannot rule out, if we get a couple of bands, especially south and east of the Snake Plain into the highlands, some gusts 40 or 50, maybe just a little bit higher briefly with some of these bands. Into the afternoon, the snow kind of lets up, becomes more showery, especially over the central mountains. We're going to be watching winds decreasing, but still a pretty good pocket of 25 to 35 mile an hour gusts over the Snake Plain into the eastern and southeastern highlands, and still some of the ridge tops being pretty breezy this afternoon. Highs today, you'll see Idaho Falls at 30, Pocatello, American Falls, many places as you head back towards the Magic Valley. South of the lava beds will be above freezing. That's that warm air coming in, starting a little bit of melting, crusting over some of that snow. Elsewhere, it'll be in the 20s and 30s. Montpelier 32. Chalice will be above freezing this afternoon. Now, going into this evening, there are those winds. They'll slowly pick up, mainly overnight, but still some gusts 25 to 35 miles an hour. There's the snow re-entering into the central mountains. This might be on the light side before midnight, but you'll see it picking up as we go into the overnight hours. Right in this area here, this is an area that's going to be pretty tricky. It's going to be above freezing pretty much all night long, and what we're expecting is it either to snow to melt as it falls. We might see we might see a mix of rain and snow in these areas. It may briefly accumulate and then melt again pretty quickly. But you'll see once you get into the lava beds, an inch or two of snow, but mainly the sawtooths and surrounding areas. Also the Tetons, the big holes, and along the border with Yellowstone there in the Island Park area, a few inches of snow developing. And there are those wind gusts overnight, and that south to southwest wind kind of downsloping, helping to kind of dry things out a bit and also keep those temperatures pretty warm along the interstate corridor. And finally, we'll get to this map showing that Pocatello 35 in the morning, 35, 36 all the way back towards Jerome, Oakley, Sweetser Summit above freezing. Idaho Falls setting right around 30 degrees. Rest of us in the teens and 20s for the most part. For tomorrow morning, the snow and wind as we get towards sunrise, just like this morning, the main band will be shifting into the southern and eastern highlands. Still pretty breezy across the area. It doesn't look like we're going to necessarily see any snow squall type situations tomorrow morning, but something to keep an eye on. But again, very breezy, blowing and drifting snow where we can keep those colder temperatures going. And then in tomorrow afternoon, the strong winds remaining across the south, and will actually pick up. Some of these areas could see gusts well in excess of 40 miles per hour, and it's a good thing in some of these areas it's going to be on the warm side. You can see that band of snow along the US 20 I-15 corridor back towards the INL. That's the hint of that convergence band. Right now, it doesn't look very impressive, but sometimes these convergence bands overachieve versus what the models try to show us, so something we'll be keeping an eye on. So blowing and drifting snow, though, for sure in the southern and eastern highlands where it stays cold for tomorrow afternoon. And look at these temperatures. 35 in Montpelier, Preston, Malad above freezing, McCamden above freezing, Twin Falls, Burley, Oakley, some of these areas in the low, maybe even closer to 45 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Stanley just flirting with the freezing mark, flirting with freezing across the Wood River Valley. For tomorrow night, that surge for wind tomorrow night and Thursday, you can see as the northwest flow sets up, basically the western side of Lemhi County, the Frank Church Wilderness seeing the snow, Stanley the snow, down into the southeast highlands, the eastern highlands as well, but that shadow over the Arco Desert. And it's going to be a cold one. With that coming through, this is going to temper, at least for Thursday morning, set the temperatures back in the morning to most areas at or below freezing for sure, especially down south towards the interstate corridor. And then the snow picks up during the day on Thursday, and you see similar areas being the focus with that strong northwest flow. Lost Trail Pass back down towards Stanley, also some of the Sawtooth ranges, also the Tetons, Island Park, the Big Holes, and the highest elevations all the way down through the Bear River Range. It'll be breezy on Thursday, but not as breezy as it's been the past day or two, and what it's going to be with the next surge coming in tonight and tomorrow. And there are those temperatures rebounding in the afternoon, more 40s across the board, especially from Pocatello back to the west. Chalice into the 40s, Stanley well above freezing. So that ridge, this warm air moving in, definitely at least a quick change for almost everyone towards warmer conditions before we get to the early part of next week. And then Friday morning, still pretty warm, especially from around Idaho Falls back through Burley, Swan Valley sitting right around the freezing mark as well. Temperatures on Friday just a bit warmer. We go into Saturday, we start to back things off a bit with that wave coming through most areas on Saturday. What precipitation will fall will be mainly in the form of snow. We've been talking about this, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday time frame, and okay, so what is the chances of seeing at least an inch of snow? Pretty much everyone's going to see that, although you can see that shadow effect for places like Arco, up towards the Pocatello Valley, the Arco Desert, even some shadowing down across portions of the Magic Valley, also back into the Treasure Valley as well. We really see a jump from that probability of one or more to 4 or more in the lower elevations. So that kind of gives you an idea. A lot of places just seeing a little bit of snowfall for that whole entire period. You can see it's still holding for the central mountains, especially the western side, portions of the southeast highlands and the eastern highlands for 4 inches or more. We're going to jump to 8 inches or more. We continue to pare that back, but this kind of gives you an idea of that northwest flow, where it's going to sit up and where it's focusing most of the snow. And that's pretty much where it's been. All of these storms we've had recently have been hitting these areas pretty hard. And by the time we get to that period and look at the chances of 12 inches or more, it was seeing a pretty good chance in some of the mid and upper elevations, and even still a chance of seeing over 2 feet in a few places like the Tetons and some of the higher peaks of the Sawtooths. Once again, round 1 is moving through this morning. It's snowy in some areas, very breezy, so definitely check with 511 if you're heading out this morning. Make sure that it's a safe drive for you. If you have to, take your time or hold off a little bit. Round 2 tonight into Wednesday, round 3 going in later into Thursday, and then the round 4 taking a little longer for Friday and Saturday. Warmer weather means some of us seeing rain and snow, a mix versus all snow through the middle and end part of the week, and still blowing and drifting snow possible, especially where we see things remaining on the colder side and that snow more powdery. Have a great day. Do stay safe out there, everyone. Take care.